Most people don't realize this, but your mind isn't just a passenger in your life. It's the driver, the engine, and the entire navigation system. And when negative thinking takes control, it's like having a saboteur at the wheel. It doesn't just affect your mood, it warps your confidence, poisons your perspective, and quietly destroys your potential. You start second-guessing yourself. Opportunities feel like threats, relationships feel unsafe, and slowly you become a prisoner to your own mind. But here's the truth, negative thoughts aren't reality. They're rehearsed reactions, patterns you've picked up from fear, rejection, past pain, and even the people around you. In this video, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're going to dissect exactly how to kill negative thinking at the root. You'll learn where these toxic thoughts come from, how they infiltrate your identity, and most importantly, how to destroy them using discipline, clarity, and power. This isn't about temporary motivation or fake positivity. This is about mental warfare, and by the end of this video, you'll be armed with tools to silence self-doubt, crush limiting beliefs, and take back control of the narrative in your mind. If you're ready to stop being your own worst enemy and start becoming unstoppable, lock in. Let's get into it. To kill negative thinking, you first have to understand its origin, because you can't defeat an enemy you haven't identified. Negative thoughts aren't random. They're patterned, they're learned, and most importantly, they're conditioned by past emotional experiences. Maybe someone made you feel unworthy as a child. Maybe you were rejected, betrayed, or criticized. Maybe you failed in a moment that mattered. And now, without even realizing it, your brain replays that emotion as a protective mechanism. It whispers, "Don't try again, it might happen again." This is the mind trying to shield you from pain, but it ends up becoming the very source of your suffering. Your brain forms neural pathways every time a negative thought is repeated. These become highways of self-doubt, fear, and limitation. The more you use them, the faster and stronger they become. So you start identifying with the thought, "I'm not good enough, they'll leave me, I always mess things up." And soon, those aren't just thoughts, they become your reality. But here's the truth most people never realize. Negative thoughts are often lies your nervous system tells you in the name of safety. They're outdated software running in a present that's evolved far beyond your past. So the first step in killing negative thinking is to stop accepting every thought as truth. You have to step back and say, where did this come from? Who taught me this? What pain is this trying to protect me from? Most of your self-hate isn't even yours. It was planted by someone else, someone who was projecting their own pain onto you. Your job now isn't to fight every thought. It's to become aware of them without attaching to them. Observation creates distance. Distance gives you choice, and choice is power. Once you understand the root, you no longer have to water the weeds. You can finally pull them out. Once you understand the root of negative thinking, the next step is learning to catch it before it multiplies, because negative thoughts don't come alone. They come in loops. One critical thought invites another, and before you know it, you've spiraled into a storm of self-doubt or fear. The power lies in the very first thought. That's the seed. And if you don't intercept it, it plants roots. So how do you break the loop? It starts with awareness and interruption. Most people let their minds run like a playlist on shuffle, random, emotional, reactive. But the moment you start noticing the exact moment a negative thought arises, "I'm not good enough, they don't care about me, I'll fail," you pause. You don't wrestle with it, you don't argue, you simply say, "That's not a fact, that's a thought." This is called cognitive diffusion, separating yourself from the thought so it doesn't become your identity. From that point, you create a pattern interrupt. Do something that pulls you out of your head and into your body. Breathe deeply. Drop and do 10 push-ups. Take a cold shower. Stand tall and say the opposite of the thought out loud. Interruptions work because the brain can't focus on two intense signals at once. When you override the mental loop with a physical or emotional pattern, you seize back control. This is especially powerful in high-stakes situations, when you're about to speak, compete, confront, or create. Negative thoughts flood in to protect you, but they don't serve you. You need to act before the loop strengthens. That's how emotional resilience is built, not by avoiding negativity, but by meeting it with decisive interruption. Remember this: what you allow is what will continue. Catch the first thought, interrupt the cycle, replace the program. This doesn't just stop negativity, it trains your mind to stop believing its own fear. And every time you do this, you rewire your brain for calm, for clarity, and for power. Killing negative thinking isn't just about silencing the voice, it's about changing the speaker. And the speaker is your identity. Most people try to fight negative thoughts with motivation or logic, but they never shift the internal identity that keeps generating those thoughts. The real transformation happens when you stop asking, "How do I think more positively?" and start asking, "Who do I believe I am?" Because the mind doesn't act in conflict with its identity. If you see yourself as broken, unworthy, or doomed to fail, your thoughts will always return to that narrative no matter how much advice or inspiration you consume. You can listen to 1,000 motivational videos and still spiral the next day if you haven't changed who you believe yourself to be. That's where identity-based affirmations come in, not the cheesy, overused kind, but powerful, strategic statements aligned with the version of you that doesn't tolerate mental sabotage. It's not, "I am happy," it's, "I am the kind of person who handles pressure with calm." Not, "I am confident," but "I move through the world like someone who deserves to be respected." These are not just phrases, they are scripts for your nervous system. When repeated daily, in silence, or out loud, especially in emotionally charged states like post-workout, right after waking, or during stress, they begin to embed themselves into your subconscious. And once your subconscious starts believing them, your default thoughts shift automatically. You don't have to think positive, you become someone who doesn't entertain mental poison. This rewiring process takes time, but it's real. Neuroscience backs it. Identity is malleable, it's conditioned, and if it was conditioned to believe negativity, it can be reconditioned to believe power. So every day, write, speak, and act in alignment with the identity you want to own. Not someday, right now. Your thoughts follow your identity. Change that, and you don't just kill negative thinking, you replace it with the voice of a warrior, a leader, a grounded mind that doesn't flinch under pressure. This is how you stop being at the mercy of your inner critic and become the voice of strength inside your own head. Negative thinking thrives in mental loops, those endless, obsessive cycles where your mind replays conversations, imagines worst-case scenarios, or fixates on what could go wrong. And here's the truth. Most people don't suffer from a single negative thought. They suffer from the repetition of that thought, again and again, until it becomes their emotional reality. The longer the loop runs, the deeper the groove it cuts in your brain, just like a river carving into stone. That's how neural pathways are formed. That's how anxiety and overthinking hardwire themselves into your operating system. So, if you want to kill negative thinking, you have to master the art of interrupting the loop early. The moment you notice your brain starting to spiral, you don't sit there and try to think your way out of it. That's like trying to put out a fire with more fire. What you do instead is break the pattern with physicality, with breath, with movement. Get up, change rooms, do 20 push-ups, take a cold shower, say stop out loud. Interrupt the script. Why? Because your mind follows your state. You're not going to solve anything while trapped in the same energy that created the storm. You shift the state first, then you regain clarity. This is why monks walk in meditation. It's why athletes have rituals before competition. It's why Navy SEALs train to use breath under fire. They're not just calming themselves, they're cutting the loop. You need to start treating rumination like an emergency alarm in your system, something that signals it's time to act, not sit and think more. And here's the key: the earlier you interrupt, the easier it is to escape. Let it run for too long, and it hijacks your entire emotional bandwidth. But catch it at the spark, and it never becomes a fire. Make this a rule. The moment you notice the spiral, move, shift your body, redirect your breath, snap the loop. Because the brain is plastic, it adapts to what you repeat. And every time you interrupt a negative loop, you weaken its power and reinforce your control. Over time, the loops lose their grip. They try to start, but they die in silence. Not because you battled them, but because you never gave them the energy to grow. That's how you kill rumination, not with more thoughts, but with action, awareness, and an unshakable refusal to let negativity rent space in your head for free. To truly kill negative thinking, you have to go deeper than the surface thoughts. You have to find the root belief they're growing from. Because thoughts don't appear out of thin air. They stem from subconscious narratives. I'm not good enough. People always leave. I'm going to fail. Nothing ever works out for me. These beliefs are like software programs running in the background of your life. If you don't consciously rewrite them, they'll keep generating the same thoughts, the same feelings, and the same reality, no matter how many times you try to think positive. So here's the truth. You don't just stop negative thoughts, you replace them at the source. You identify the story, you challenge the lie, and then you install a better one. Start by catching the patterns. What do you always assume about yourself when things go wrong? What do you tell yourself when someone rejects you, when you make a mistake? That's your root narrative speaking. Now break it down. Ask, is this absolutely true? Where did I learn this? Whose voice is this really? Mine or someone else's? Because most of your negative beliefs weren't born from truth. They were handed to you by someone who didn't know how to love you properly. A parent who made love conditional. A teacher who humiliated you. A partner who manipulated you. And now those voices live rent-free in your mind, disguised as your own thoughts. So here's how you start the rewire. Every time a thought comes up that drips with self-judgment, doubt, or shame, pause. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Just ask, what belief is this coming from? Then challenge it with truth. If the thought says, I always ruin things, replace it with, I've made mistakes, but I'm learning, and that makes me stronger. If the thought says, I'm unlovable, replace it with, I've been hurt, but I'm still worthy of love and respect. And repeat it daily. You're not just saying affirmations, you're rewiring neurons. The more often you install the new belief, the more your brain adapts. Over time, the negative thoughts lose their credibility. They pop up, but they don't land. Why? Because the operating system has changed. This is the missing piece most people skip. They try to control the branches, but forget about the roots. But once you attack the belief itself, everything above it starts to shift. Your thoughts get lighter, your self-talk becomes sharper. And the same situations that used to spiral you into anxiety, now they bounce off you, because they can't find a wound to latch onto. That's what happens when you rewire the narrative. You become mentally bulletproof. One of the most powerful ways to kill negative thinking is to realize this. You are not your thoughts. You're the one observing them. The moment you stop identifying with your thoughts, they lose their grip. Most people get trapped because they argue with their mind, try to suppress the negativity, or get emotionally hooked by every inner critic that speaks. But the key isn't to argue, it's to observe, to become the watcher. Imagine sitting on a riverbank and watching your thoughts float by like leaves on water. Some are dark, some are pointless, some trigger old wounds. But you don't jump in. You don't chase them down. You just sit there, calm, aware, unmoved. That's real power. Detachment is the ultimate tool against mental chaos, because when you stop reacting, the thoughts start dissolving on their own. And here's the truth. Thoughts only survive if you feed them attention. They're like parasites that need your emotional energy to stay alive. The moment you stop giving them that energy, they fade. So when your mind tells you you're going to fail or you're not good enough, don't fight it. Don't try to reason with it. Just say, there's that thought again, and let it pass. This isn't denial, it's control. You're breaking the habit of engagement, because engagement is what gives the thought its power. Over time, you'll notice something incredible. The less you react, the less those thoughts show up. Your brain starts reprogramming itself based on your lack of response. It learns that those old mental patterns don't get rewarded anymore, so it stops sending them. And what takes their place? stillness, clarity, confidence. This is the same principle taught in ancient Stoicism and Eastern mindfulness. Observe everything, react to nothing. That's the mindset of warriors, sages, and leaders. Not because they don't feel fear or doubt, but because they've mastered the skill of non-attachment. You can think a negative thought without believing it. You can feel insecurity without becoming it. And when you do that, when you step back and become the watcher, your thoughts no longer control your emotions, your actions, or your life. You control them. And that's the moment your mind stops being your enemy and starts becoming your weapon. If you want to kill negative thinking for good, you have to go beyond simply observing it. You need to replace it. Your mind is always running scripts. Some were installed when you were a child. Others were shaped by pain, rejection, comparison, and fear. But here's the truth. Those scripts aren't reality. They're just repeated lines your mind has learned to echo. And repetition is what gave them power. That means repetition is also what can break them. You don't overcome negative thinking by trying to be positive once. You rewire your inner world by programming new truths over and over until your nervous system accepts them as default. Start by identifying your dominant negative thoughts. Not just surface-level ones like "I'm not good enough," but the deep ones like "I don't deserve love" or "nothing ever works out for me." These are the core beliefs driving your reactions, sabotages, and self-doubt. Now replace them with upgraded truths. But don't just throw affirmations at them. Use evidence-based replacements. For example, if your old script says, "I always mess things up," your new script is, "I've learned from my past and I move smarter now." That's not blind optimism. That's evolution. If your old script says, "No one cares about me," your new one is, "I care about myself and I attract people who value what I bring." And you say it daily. Not like a weak chant, but like a code you're installing. Speak it when you wake up. Speak it when doubt creeps in. Speak it when your environment is silent, but your mind gets loud. Because here's the science. Your brain has neuroplasticity. That means it rewires based on use. Whatever thoughts you use most become your operating system. That's why negativity feels automatic. It's just been used more. So start using the new ones more and back them with action. Prove your new script true by living like it's already real. When your thoughts say you're not enough, walk into the room like you are. When your mind says they won't like you, let your presence decide. This isn't about pretending. It's about choosing. You're choosing to stop rehearsing pain. You're choosing to stop narrating weakness. And every time you do that, you weaken the old voice and strengthen the new one. In time, your dominant thoughts will shift. Your confidence won't be fragile. It'll be installed. That's how you rewire your reality. That's how you kill negative thinking at the root, by giving your mind a new script and repeating it until it forgets the old one ever existed. The final and most underestimated way to kill negative thinking is simple: act. Negative thoughts thrive in stillness, in hesitation, in overthinking. The longer you sit in your head, the louder the lies become. But movement, decisive, purposeful action shatters that loop. You don't wait until your mind is clear to act. You act, and that clears your mind. Because motion rewires emotion. It breaks the paralysis. It sends signals to your brain that you're in control, not your fear, not your doubt, not your insecurities. The fastest way to kill self-doubt is to do the thing you doubt you can do. The fastest way to destroy fear is to walk directly into what you fear. Every time you take action in spite of your mind, you weaken the voice that says you can't. You change the power balance. Suddenly, your thoughts start responding to you. This is where transformation happens. When you stop needing permission to feel ready and instead say, "I move anyway." You apply for the job, you start the project, you set the boundary, you walk away from toxicity, you go to the gym, you record the video, you speak the truth. These aren't just tasks, they're proof. Proof that you don't let your mind trap you in imaginary failure. Most people think they need clarity before they move, but clarity comes from moving. It's the result of momentum, not the requirement for it. So when your mind spirals, interrupt it with action. When your energy dips, charge it with motion. Even walking, lifting, breathing deeply, standing tall, speaking firmly, all of it is psychological leverage. You remind yourself, I am not a prisoner of my thoughts. I'm the one driving this machine. Your body was built for movement. Your brain was built to follow signals. And when you move with power, your mind obeys. You train it through repetition. You show it through action that the old narrative is irrelevant now. Because this version of you doesn't sit and suffer. This version of you steps, leads, builds. And every time you move in spite of negativity, that negativity dies a little more. Eventually, it starves. And you stand there, unshaken, focused, free. Because you learned the ultimate truth. Thoughts only rule those who let them. But you act, and that makes you unstoppable. If you've made it this far, understand this. Your mind is not your enemy, but it can become your cage if you don't take control of it. Negative thinking is not a life sentence, it's a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken, rewired, and replaced with power. You don't kill negative thoughts by begging them to leave. You kill them by becoming the kind of person they can't survive around. You observe them, outsmart them, replace them, and most importantly, you move in spite of them. That's what discipline looks like. That's what mental strength is. And if you want to keep sharpening that mindset, if you want more raw, real, unfiltered truth to keep building your inner power, then subscribe right now. Drop a comment below and let me know which section hit you hardest. What negative belief are you done tolerating? Let it out. Let this be your turning point. Because you weren't made to live inside your doubts. You were made to break them. So subscribe, join the movement, and I'll see you in the next one. Sharper, stronger, and one step closer to your unstoppable self. Let's keep going.